lounging, son.
Welcome to another episode of the Funky Lounge. Welcome to another episode.
The Funky Lounge.
The Funky Lounge podcast featuring comics and funk. It's too early, dude. It's like I literally don't start socializing until like 10 o'clock on weekdays, and this is terrible. Anyway, I am your host, the Incredible Dillbot, with my host, the Immortal Iron Ryan. Yeah, the homies for hire.
So
Static Shock.
Yeah, let's talk Static, dude. This is your first time reading it?
No. I read this in the 90s. I did.
Okay.
This was definitely one of those books that I did read in the 90s. But I haven't read it since the 90s. So a lot of this was like, that whole thing when you revisit something as a kid and when you read something as a kid or watch something as a kid and then revisit it as an adult, it can go one of two ways. Either it gets worse because you've grown, or it gets better because you've grown, right? This was one of those things where it got better because I was grown.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot more here that I could appreciate, and keep in mind, there's a lot of this I don't remember. It was like reading it again for the first time, but with like seeing familiar friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. First off, let's get with the let's hit him with the credits.
Yeah. Okay.
The late great Dwayne McDuffie, and also the late great Robert L. Washington III.
Yeah.
Excellent writers. They created this guy. Static Shock. Okay. Anyway, John Paul Leon and Dennis Cowan on pencils. Steve Mitchell, Sean C. Martinborough, and Jim Palmiotti for the ink. Colorist is Noel C. Giddings. Assistant colorist Jay Brown. Letterer Steve Haney. Okay, but anyway, Static. I do nothing but keep on referring him as Static Shock. But it's funny because further iterations in him, I started just call him Static.
Static is the original name.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like Static Shock didn't even become a thing until the animated series, which was wildly popular. And Dennis Cowan was mainly responsible for helping bring that to light. I think it's cool that we happened to pick this book at the beginning of the month before they officially announced the new Milestone line coming back, and some of the artists on there. Which the artist that's drawing the new Static is really dope. I forgot the name.
Have you seen the character design?
Oh, it's amazing.
It looks so sick, dude.
It's insane. It's so dope. It's fucking awesome. Yeah. I'm very excited for Milestone coming back. I love the Milestone books. Hardware, Icon, the Blood Syndicate, all the shit. Dude, I'm here for all of it. And I'm very, very happy to see that we're going to have another Static book. I loved this series when I first got it. I could not find my fucking first issue. I found the single issues for 2 through 4, so I had to read issue 1 on my computer, which really bothered me. But because it really just takes away from it, in my opinion. You don't like.
Oh yeah, no. Well, okay. All right. So I feel like for 90s comics and 80s comics, reading them digitally takes away from it because something happens with the transference from paper to digital with 80s and 90s and just older comics in general, where it just doesn't hit the right marks as far as tones, and everything just doesn't look right. But I will say this: I did read it digitally, and I can just say this: it looks great. I know it doesn't look as great as on paper, but it still looks great.
Oh, I was saying more in terms of I had to scroll through the fucking pages, but. First, I love the design of Static, this massive trench coat. I love Virgil's personality. He is the Spider-Man of the Milestone Universe. You know what I mean? He's kind of nerdy, but I would say a little bit cooler than Peter was in high school. I just recently read the first 17 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, and I realized, dude, Peter was a fucking dick. He was an asshole.
A jerk, dude.
He was a fucking asshole.
I was reading the Marvel Masterworks first 10 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm just like, you're kind of a jerk, Peter.
Yeah, no wonder they punked your ass. That's what I was thinking. I was like,
you ever watch 30 Rock? And okay, remember that episode where Liz goes back to her high school reunion and she's like, "Oh, everyone hated me," da, 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 da. And then when she finally starts talking to the people in high school, it's like, "You made our lives a living hell, Liz." That's what I feel like Peter Parker is in the first 10 issues of Amazing Spider-Man.
I'm like reading it and I'm like, how did anybody like this motherfucker? That's just my opinion. I think, and obviously you agree, like he was just kind of a dick. But Virgil is not. Virgil is very likable from the first issue. They flesh out this world of characters. You know what I mean? Like
very well too, and very quickly.
Very quickly, very well. Dwayne McDuffie and Robert Washington III, they did fucking a phenomenal job with these characters, and they really grounded it. You have this event that happens in the Miles Dakotaverse, right? The Big Bang, where all these people end up with powers, and we get the origin in the second issue. The first issue is like
Static. He's already established. Yeah,
he's already established. People know him, and but it's the dialogue is natural, right? In this, it just flows. It doesn't even. I wouldn't even say it feels dated. Maybe it doesn't feel dated because we grew up in the '90s. So like, a lot of this is like relatable to me, right? But it
was very easy to read the dialogue.
Yeah,
and to hear the voices, right?
Yes.
Like later on in this, friggin' when Static is talking to what's his name, dude from Blood Syndicate, who left Blood Syndicate.
Holocaust.
Yeah, Holocaust. Yeah, when him and Holocaust are having a conversation, it was like a big homie, little homie, friggin' conversation. You know what I mean? I love it. But anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
And I love it's. Like I said, it's like superhero stuff, but it's grounded. It's real world problems, and that's what Milestone did. It showed a more diverse cast of characters. It talked about real like gun violence, right? Like him, like he's getting punked, and like, oh, I need to protect myself, and like his friend in high school was like, I'll get you a gun, and it's stuff like that. Or you talk about gang violence and like moving your family, like she moved, like Virgil's parents, like we moved to this basically like a white neighborhood, right? Out of the hood, and you're still now you're fighting with white boys. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like stuff like that really makes it different than anything else I think that was coming out in the time. If you put, like I think I've said this, if you put a Milestone book next to another comic in the '90s, it's different. One of the things too is the coloring. The coloring of this book is so fucking dope to me. It's way different. It's like it's before digital coloring, right? Before that really took off. But it's so different than everything else. You know what I mean? Like the way they get the shades and the tones in here, as opposed to like the flatness that you would see in like a Marvel or DC comic.
Yeah, there's flow, there's texture to it. There's a depth to it. It feels very alive. I love Frida's hair, the settings, and the like even when they're just sitting down having dinner, it looks great. Like you see everything. There's just so much detail in everything, and right down to the fashion, right down to the baggy '90s fashion.
Yeah,
like everything is great, dude. Everything is great.
I don't think I bought the Static comics before the show. I think I might have had like a Static 1 somehow in my collection. I don't know how I got it. And I think I might have had like a hardware number 1. And then once the show came out, I tried to get some back issues. They're kind of expensive now to get. And I have like a good chunk of Static comics. But like I said, like I think I told you I was missing 5. I thought the first arc was 1 through 6. I couldn't remember what the trade was because I never had the trade. So I'm like, fuck, I don't have 1. I can't find 1 and I don't have 5. Luckily, it was only 4, but so I'm like missing 5, but I have 6 through 10 or whatever, and then I have like other ones, right? But I love the character from the show, but once I read the comic, I'm like, this is where it's at.
This is where it's at. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I kept hearing Method Man for some reason, "Bring the Pain." Like that song for some reason, as I was reading it, like
there's some really dope stuff here. I love the fact that he's wearing a Malcolm X hat in the first issue. And then the next issue, he's wearing a Georgetown Hoyas hat.
Yeah, the Hoyas, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, like, you can tell that this is very street. This is very neighborhood.
Yep.
I don't know. Even within the representation of wearing a Malcolm X hat, I think about around that time. That's when that Denzel movie, the X came out. The Denzel Washington movie about Malcolm X. that was a very big part of the culture back then, and to see it here transfer on,
Yeah.
like, it's
It's
great.
a powerful statement for sure.
Yeah, it's a super powerful statement. You know what I mean? And then just the progression throughout this story of the things he encounters. Like, I remember thinking as a kid, man, like, man, there are some really deep episodes of the Static Shock TV show that was just a drop in the water compared to these first 4 issues. Just the gun, just the gun violence. And what really got me, what was like one of my favorite things, was Virgil's relationship with his sister. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I felt like that was my relationship with my sister. Like, she was always ratting me out for some shit. I was always off doing my own thing, but she was always ratting me out for some shit. And like, I'm always like, it's little subtleties like that. Even the relationship Virgil, as a civilian, without the mask on, has with the people around him, with his mother, with his boss, with his friends, with dude who gave him the gun, with Frida. Like, all that seems so real to me. It's not like, oh, he's the boy who has a crush on the girl, but I won't talk to her. No, he's totally talking to her every night.
He's telling her.
He's getting the friggin' only friends deal, but
he's friend zoned.
Like,
she friend zoned his ass.
Yeah, she's friend zoned his ass. But it's very real. It's like, I more often than not, growing up, I knew more guys that got friend zoned than guys who got with the girls that they always wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
in high school for us, being friend zoned was kind of like a regular thing. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, just the relationships. I mean, even right down to when he's talking to Holocaust, like I felt the total vibes of little homie, big homie. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even dealing with the pressures, Holocaust is kind of a dick. But, like...
Yeah, like he has his motives, like, especially if you read, like, Blood Syndicate also. Like, I just read Blood Syndicate 1. I did an episode on, for the channel. They are a gang, but they kind of have, I wouldn't say positive motives or anything, or, like, genuine, like, good motives. Yeah. But they are taking down, like, crack houses and shit like that. You're dealing with, like, drugs and prostitution and, like, all of these things that, like, you'll see in, like, in the hood, right? In these, like, in these neighborhoods. That's what, like, he tries to recruit Static, right, by sending out another one of the members of the Blood Syndicate. And then, like you're saying, like, they get that relationship where he's, like, trying to take him under his wing. But then he's like, no, you're going to these extreme measures. Like, we don't need to do that. You know what I mean? Like, even though, like, Holocaust is like, oh, you brought drugs and prostitution and all this shit, gambling into my neighborhood. So he's trying to take out, like, the Italian mob, right? The Italian mafia, which is another gang. They just wear fucking suits or whatever. You know what I mean? There's something different. That's what I love about that too. Is like they're not necessarily going after supervillains. Like, yes, Hot Streak is. He kind of tries to punk Static.
It's a super-powered villain.
Right. Kind of tries to punk Static, but then Static, he has his way with him. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but even then, like the people affected and by the Big Bang isn't like, extenuating circumstances, like Peter Parker, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Bitten by a radioactive spider at a freaking science lab where they're doing, you know what I mean? It wasn't a series of events that led to, there was a series of events that led to Peter being bitten. Whereas, like, the people here in Milestone, it was just a Big Bang and a bunch of people got affected.
Right. And it happened in a small town. It happened in a small town.
Yeah, it happened in a small town. So it's not like it's not like New York City where, there's just so many diverse people. This is like a city where a bunch of regular people live. Yeah. You know what I mean? It could freaking be Tempe, Arizona, and it had the same effect. You know what I mean? And you have all these people who like aren't like trained. Like, there's a certain criteria for superheroes, but these superheroes don't fit those criterias, right? You know what I mean?
Like, and really, fucking Static is the only one from the Big Bang that we've seen in this series, right? That is doing heroic stuff. The rest of them are fucking like kind of almost abusing their power. But I wanted to touch back on too, like you're talking about like the relationships, right? And stuff out of the costume. That's what I love about comics. That's what I think is missing. That's what is one of my major gripes about, like, we were talking about Spider-Man earlier. We don't see enough of that in the comic books. It's just a bunch of superheroics. I want to see the the relationships with the friends, with the family, with the significant others. Like, that's what makes it, you got more of like the soap opera dynamic in the comic books. And they balance that line in all of the Milestone books, but especially within Static, that I really love. Like, Hardware is another one, like, that's really dope, that I think that if you haven't read it, I think you should go read the trade too. I think that's available on Comixology also. It's just cool to see a teen hero that, while feels familiar, is also done in a different way than we had seen, I would say, previously, if we're going back in time and looking at the 90s. But even now, like, you don't really see a teen-led superhero book like this. Like, this is very unique in and of itself. And it's crazy to think that, like, they made a show out of this. You know what I mean? Like, if you would have told me when I was reading this as a kid, like, oh, they're going to make a cartoon, like, how did this come about, of all properties in comic books? And then it went on for like a few seasons too.
Yeah.
Like, it became very popular, and they over time they tried to incorporate it into the DCU proper. And New 52, he was a Teen Titan and stuff like that, but it just never stuck. And I think it's because, like, this needs to be its own thing.
In an episode of Batman Beyond, he also ended up becoming the new Black Lightning.
Yeah. So
I just had to throw that out. I thought that was like the coolest thing. I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, totally makes sense. But I think that these characters have been underutilized for long enough. I think this is like the perfect time, and I said it to Dennis Cowan when I talked to him at the beginning of the pandemic, that we need, like, the comic book industry needs the Milestone universe back. They need the Milestone characters. Like, this is the time, like, society, commentary on society, political issues, like, that's what Milestone did perfectly without beating you over the head with it. And I want to see that in comics now. And I think it's
because the stories felt natural. It didn't feel forced. None of this feels forced. None of this feels forced. And we're talking about the 90s. Like, this is like post LA riots. Yep. So this is any town. This is any city USA, where any city was where it's vastly minority filled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, look at the demographic. Look at the not the demographic, but, like, like, look how culturally diverse just Virgil's group of friends are.
Right.
You know I mean? There's a white kid with blonde long hair. There's Frida, who's possibly Latina. There's Virgil. Like, you know what I mean? None of this feels forced. It doesn't feel like like the New Warriors felt, how it was forced, completely 100% forced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. It's the writing. It has to be the writing.
I know. I miss Dwayne McDuffie, dude. I mean,
you know what I mean?
I mean, he wrote a lot of the Justice League cartoon too that we loved. He was a part of that. Also, he did a run on Justice League where he brought in the Milestone characters in a crossover with that too. Yeah. It's just such a great series, and I just wish it was in print. I wish that people could go to a comic book shop and I could recommend them, like, any of the Milestone books. None of them are in print. They're coming back digitally. But I can't sell. Oh, hey, go buy it digitally. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to recommend you, like, somebody at a shop to go read it online. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not what I'm going to do. Like you said, like, this is the world outside your window. This is literally, it's
not outside my window anymore, because I freaking live in Simi Valley.
That's true. Side on I live in Reseda, so but
I miss Reseda so much.
This is
I do and I don't. I do and I don't.
Yeah,
like,
well, I don't.
I miss like the closeness of, like, just everything just familiar for me. I've lived out here in Simi Valley for 2 years. I still don't know where shit is. There's a Stater Brothers out here that my wife keeps on talking about. I don't know where the fuck that shit is. Like, it's by the Stater Brothers. The what?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. There's like a supermarket here I've never heard of. Like, what the fuck is an Aldi?
Yeah, what is that? I've never even heard of it.
It's I don't know. It just opened. but apparently it's a thing. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of like I like about these books, and kind of like what I like about a lot of 90s books. I mean, nostalgia is just like oversimplifying it, right?
Yeah.
But, like, it's like liking your favorite era of art. Like, you know what I mean? Did you like modern art? Did you like, freaking I don't know, whatever the fuck other arts there are, right? I don't know.
Whatever fucking other kind of arts there are.
What arts there are, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But like this, when people say trash the '90s, I get mad at them because there were a lot of bad '90s comics. There were, but also there's a lot of bad 2000s comics. There's also a lot of bad comics in the past.
There's always bad comic books.
Yeah,
and when people do that, they're oversimplifying a whole decade of comic books, which is unfair.
But then you have comics like this. You have comics like Static Shock. You have comics like Static, who are just so stand out that people, because of how ridiculous the '90s was, people will just automatically discount the '90s, but forget about titles like this.
Yeah, I mean, that's why these were in like quarter bins, dollar bins, 50-cent bins for such a long time. But now they're like, people are seeing them and they're like, oh shit, and all, like the prices are going up. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I won't get rid of mine because like it's so hard to find because the print runs aren't necessarily very high, especially towards the end of these runs. The print runs were really low.
That Revis collection, the one that I went through, it had 4 copies of Static 1.
You should have bought them all.
I should have bought them all.
Yeah.
I should have.
Yeah.
You know what else they had? You know what else they had that I really wanted to buy? Fucking issues 1 through 3 of Meteor Man.
You should have.
Robert Townsend. I should have bought that shit, bro.
Should have bought that. I probably would have been like, and then Nick would have judged me if I'm like, I want to buy these. Like he's constantly judging the books that I put aside for myself.
Nick is a judgy motherfucker.
I mean, yeah, I mean, whatever. Because he just doesn't like nostalgia. He's not like
our judgy motherfucker.
Yeah, he's just not into nostalgia. He's like, no, like he doesn't like going back and he doesn't like going back and reading old stuff. He can't, like, I don't know, put himself in that mind frame. I don't know. But that's besides the point. I think that I don't need to bash Nick. Fuck Nick for judging me. But Static and the entire Milestone universe is just, I mean, I can't really say much more than what I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but it is such a good time capsule. That's it. It's a good time capsule for that era. And it reminds me of childhood to me. It reminds me not in a nostalgic feeling, but it feels so real. Like what's happening if you take out the superheroics, you know what I'm saying? Like it is 90s. Like, and so when I read it, it just makes me happy, and not in like a sense of like, oh, I'm so nostalgic for this. This is why I like it. No, it's timeless to me because of it being so grounded in reality of what was going on in that decade.
And what's going on is still going on.
Yeah, and what's still going on. And it's just, there's a magic to it. And like you said, like reading old comic books digitally, sometimes you lose some of the magic. Like I love cracking open a comic book from that era. I love cracking open these like Milestone books because I've been reading quite a bit of them. And I found some in the collection too that I was telling you about. So like I was like going through it the other day. I'm like, oh, I missed a couple of the Static issues. Taking those home. You know what I mean? Like, so like I've been able to fill in some of my gaps because like this guy that traded in this, he's an actor. He's not like a big actor, but if you saw him, you'd recognize him. He tends to play a cop in a lot of stuff that's on TV. So he sold a lot of his stuff, and like he had Hardware, he had Icon, he had Blood Syndicate. So I'm like, dude, I'm taking all this shit with me, and I probably a stack like that big of Milestone books. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So I've really been immersing myself, and that's why like I've just been like on this Milestone kick, and now it's coming back. And then when's
the official date for Milestone to come back?
Well, this month is going to have the digital copy of Milestone Returns, but then we're also getting a hard copy in May.
Oh, okay.
And then the digital first series are starting in like the summer, and then I don't know when the actual print versions of them come out, but I'm here for all of it, dude. I think they're awesome, dude. They're dope. I can't say anything else other than that. They're fucking hip hop. They're 90s. They're everything I love about 90s comic books in one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just, the art great, the writing great, and the fucking text pieces that they do, the editorials that Dwayne McDuffie would write in these are fucking really good. Like you,
that's what I miss out. That's what I miss out on when I read the trade.
Yeah,
I have the trade digitally, and I don't get any of that.
Right. Yeah, and that's another reason.
That's another thing I miss about that's the one thing about like digital stuff that I miss. Like with digital, you don't get a lot of like the bullpen stuff. Remember, remember how Marvel used to do the bullpen,
Yeah.
and you don't get letters to the editor.
Yep.
In a couple books you do though. In a couple books you do. Like I think I got it Eddie's Clubhouse for Venom. I got some of those like letters and stuff. Man, see that's another thing too. There's more stuff I miss about the '90s.
I mean, that's why I love back issues, bro. Like Nick's constantly is like, "Oh yeah, you're into that. I don't like back issues." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's fun to dig through them." Like we have a customer too that because I was going through that collection, I was looking for Amazing Spider-Man, but I was really looking for the Milestone stuff again. So I wanted to make another pass. Yeah, I love back issues. If you can find these in the back issue bins and you see them, snatch them up. If you don't want to keep them, and you just find them, send them to Dylan and I. The homies for hire. We'll take those Milestone books. And
we'll take those as pay, and we'll pitch you some ideas for your life.
Yes. So you can contact us at thecomicloungepod@gmail.com, and I'll give you our mailing address if you find these Milestone books, because Dylan and I. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, we
but yeah. Also, wait. Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So is Milestone going to be like a subdivision of DC, or is it going to be its own thing again?
I think it's its own thing. I think it's like on Earth M. Okay. I think is what they were calling it. They were originally going to do an Earth M book. That was like years ago. Because they've like it's just failed relaunch after failed relaunch, and I know there's a lot of behind the scenes that we don't see. Like Reggie Hudlin, who used to be I think president of BET. He did like he wrote Black Panther. He's written some other stuff. He's a part of Milestone. Forgot. I think Derek Dingle. It was president of Milestone back then. I think he has something to do with it now. I'm not sure. I know Dennis Cowan's been like in the trenches trying to get this back, and it's finally coming back. So I think it's separate. I hope it's separate. I think it should be kind of. You know what I mean? Like I don't really want it crossing over with the main DCU. I think it can be its own thing and it can do well. So I mean, I can't wait for it. I think all of you guys that. I know we probably didn't do like a great job of recommending Static because we were mostly talking about how we loved it as kids and how we loved it now. But it's a great book. It's a great line of books. The Static Shock show is now on HBO Max. So, if you liked the show as a kid, you didn't know there was comics, check them out. You know what I mean? Like they are available digitally now. So if you can't find it in print, it's still available to read. Yeah. So.
It's honestly like our own nostalgia aside, it's a good fucking read, and it's a short read. It's a short read. There's everything about this is it's pretty seamless as far as like dialogue goes. So it's not like you're gonna be sitting. It's not like it's gonna. One, it's not gonna beat you over head with politics. Two, if you ever grew up in a city or grew up in a heavily populated area, then you totally understand it and feel it. And also, just the art of it is just like Ryan said, it's a total time capsule. And it's some of the best stuff that's out there. And if you need any more convincing, just fucking holler at us. Because this is I cannot recommend this enough. I know that me and Ryan are very excellent at selling people books, but this is one of those books where I feel like it's literally essential for any fan of the 90s. Yeah. Any fan of comics in general. You got to read it. This is good stuff here. And
yeah, this was an important moment in comic book history. Right. The Milestone line of comic books. Like, they did that comic book history with Robert Kirkman. They had a whole fucking episode on Milestone. There's a reason. Yeah. Because this was unlike anything else that was coming out in comic books. It was a huge leap because, like, DC was basically funding it, but Milestone worked independently. DC just distributed it. You know what I mean? Like, they had their own studio. They had their own people that they had in there. It's essential reading for comic book fans. Any comic book historians, like if you are a fan of the history of the medium, this is a line of books that is far and above so much of what was coming out in that time. And it's just, like I said, it's essential. It's essential reading.
Yeah, but that's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got. I could keep going. And just keep saying how much I love it, but
it's just going to regurgitate at this point.
Yeah. So, real quick, you want to talk about?
Let's talk about our book next week, which is we're finally jumping back into Fables.
Oh, Fables, yeah.
Fables. We're finally jumping back into it. It's gonna be 2 episodes, like back to back of Fables episodes, just so we can catch up. And Like Ryan said earlier off camera, like I kind of want to finish it too. like,
Yeah.
I want it to be over with.
I
Like,
mean,
we're so close. This is the home stretch. We might as well go ham.
yeah, I mean, I kind of just part of me just wants to just do Fables until we're done, but I don't know if I can do that either. So, I mean, I think what we got like 5 episodes left, 4 episodes.
No, what Fables?
Fables.
No, we have 3. Oh, 4. My bad.
Okay. 4 episodes left. But anyways, yeah, so we're reading Fables. There's going to be a couple episodes of Fables. If you guys aren't following along because like we're so deep into it, I get it. We said we were going to do this.
We were going to do it, and we fucking did it.
Yeah, I
about to do it.
True to my word. So, real quick, I will just mention the books I'm getting next week. We already talked about Future State on the Future State episode, so I think Amazing Spider-Man is out this week for me. Batman Black and White, new issue Savage Dragon, new issue of X-Men, which I'm excited for. And then we got Marvel. Yeah, Marvel's Voices Legacy, which I'm really down for. I like it. We're getting some creators on there that don't normally write or do stuff with Marvel or DC, so very excited for that as well.
One of the artists for the Native American Voices, what do you call it? She's a regular at our place, and she's like the nicest person. Like, I'm very excited. I'm like, I don't know. I really like this kind of initiative that Marvel is taking with that. It's good. Also, it's time for new blood, bro.
Yep.
we need new blood. And it has nothing to do with color or race or anything like that. I just legitimately feel like we need fresh takes.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
We need fresh takes. For me, I'm looking forward to crossover. I'm probably going to jump back into Spawn with Spawn 315 because of the
Todd Father's announcements. Yeah, we didn't talk about
announcements. That. There's the whole wave of creators. The Spawn Universe. The Spawniverse. That's what I'm calling it.
Spawniverse. Okay, Spawniverse.
Yeah, the Spawniverse. It's gonna be awesome. I don't know. I didn't finish watching the announcements. I only saw the announcements of creators, so I don't know what the 3 other lines are gonna be. Well, but I mean, I hope it's cool. I really hope we get. I mean, we'll never see Angela again, so that's.
She's at Marvel now, so whatever.
Shout out Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, shout out to Neil Gaiman.
Department of Truth I'm looking forward to. King in Black: Return of the Valkyries. I've been loving that tie-in. Like, I mean, I love Jane Foster. Oh, and Monsters 32. I'm just holding on to all my issues at this point because like it is a lot. Like it's hard. It's hard to read month to month. It's a lot. So I'm doing. It's kind of like how I'm doing Strange Adventures and waiting every 3 issues.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. Certain comics are like that where they just read better in chunks.
Yeah,
for sure.
Also, Stray Dogs.
Oh yeah, Stray Dogs. Shout out to Tony Fleece, Trish Forster, dude. Like that first issue was dope as fuck. I read it before I interviewed him, but it's fucking awesome, dude. I think a lot of people are gonna dig it, and I think it's gonna be a hit.
Yeah, no. I mean, freaking Silence of the Lambs, but dogs. So,
so awesome.
So it's good. It's great. And who doesn't love dogs? And who doesn't love Silence of the Lambs? Okay. Well, that's one of those movies where, like, if you haven't seen it or if you don't like it, I feel like Nick and I judge you.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't see that movie.
That's I mean, I love every single one of the freaking Hannibal Lecter movies, right? Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, Red Dragon, like those shits are. That's some fucking writing right there. Like but anyway, I digress. I digress multiple times.
All right. Well, that's all I got. I gotta get my kid ready for this fucking online schooling. So I wanted to do
laundry and watch anime.
I wanted to talk about this. We'll talk about this next week. The rumors of somebody trying to buy DC. We will talk about it because we should have been talking about it today. But
who knows?
Because it's a long conversation.
If it's going to be a rumor next week. Who knows if it's going to be a rumor?
I mean, all right. If it's not a rumor, then we can talk shit about whoever bought it. So there's talks of licensing out the characters just in terms of publishing. But it's just too long of a conversation. to get into right now.
And I'm going to need to do my research. So
yeah, do your research and we'll reconvene next week. That has been another episode of the Comic Lounge podcast. And, all right, well, if you're not already following us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Comic Lounge. You can follow Dylan at the Dillbot on Instagram. Make sure you throw your comments or suggestions down below, or you can also email us at thecomicloungepod@gmail.com, and make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid goes up. And on that note, we're out.
Later, buds.